Oh, howdy all, grab yourselves a beer, it is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Today I wanted to talk about a strategy for rolling traditional jewels. So that is Cobalt jewels as I'll be using, Viridian jewels and Crimson jewels, that received a considerable indirect buff in 3.10. So when Delirium League was introduced, there were a number of sweeping nerfs to fossil crafting. However, whilst these generally made fossil crafting weaker, it actually made using fossils on traditional jewels stronger than they used to be. So when you use jewels on fossils, what happens is, well, what used to happen was that in addition to the usual effects of biasing rolls that fossils have, so for instance, the Frigid Fossil here makes you 10 times as likely to roll any specific cold modifier and makes it absolutely impossible for that jewel to have any fire modifiers on it at all. Pristine Fossil made you 10 times as likely to get any life roll, and completely removed all armor, energy shield, and evasion mods from the pool. So that effect remains, but in addition to that, fossils used to have a number of fossil exclusive mods. Almost all of these have been removed, and whilst this might sound bad, actually they were very, very low quality mods. And what this meant was that when you used fossils to craft jewels in previous incarnations of the game, you'd find that a lot of your rolls were wasted because one of the mods would be something extremely undesirable. So the life exclusive mod, so this was the one you could only get through using pristine fossils on jewels, was 0.3% of life regenerated per second. Now it's not completely useless, but it's miles weaker than any other mod that you might get on a jewel that would be compelling to use. For Frigid Fossils, this mod was 1% damage, 1% elemental penetration with cold damage. Again, not totally useless, but pretty damn weak. So, with those mods gone, those mods were very frequent as well. When I say frequent, I mean that they were that you got them more than 50% of the time when you were rolling jewels. And I just got paid off for Varling a random jewel. Varlorb that bricked a jewel, a unique jewel that was a low value unique jewel turned into a 4 mod rare, and that 4 mod rare just ended up selling. Anyways, back on topic. So what I'm going to be doing is crafting jewels using pristine fossils to bias towards rolling life. And you should find that with a pristine fossil, instead of getting life about once in every 30 rolls, you should get it about once in every 3, maybe 3.5. And Frigid Fossils as well for more cold rolls. No guarantee that I'll get something great, but I'm going to give it a shot. I've set up 3 jewels to go here, and I'm going to set up 7 of these double socket resonators and fire away. Okay, first roll is absolute and utter garbage, as many of them will be. Second roll is absolute and utter mediocrity. Third roll, we've got mind damage, cold damage over time multiplier, crit chance. So this has some potential. Mines and attacking cast speed don't synergize all that well together. So one of those is going to be a wasted stat for most people. But I'm just kind of thinking there might be some relevance between enough synergy between the first 3 mods for this to go into a 20 chaos tab, rather than to end up getting scoured like the other 2. This one here, however, is getting scoured. Cold damage over time multiplier, cold damage. This is solid. Critical strike chance on spells is not strong, and it also doesn't synergize with cold damage over time multiplier. But just consider this based upon the other 3 mods, and you got cold damage over time multiplier, cold damage, and cast speed, conditional cast speed. Based on those 3 mods alone, I think that this has some real potential, and the critical strike chance for spells is weak, but it's not a totally and utterly wasted stat, given that pretty much every single build that runs any sort of cold damage over time mod is going to be running Elemental Overload as well. So for that reason, I'm certainly quite happy with that. That's at the better end, even though I haven't hit life once yet, but it's certainly a keeper and a seller. Here we have attack speed, conditional cast speed, crit multi, and then the wasted stat of minion elemental resistance. This is just a little bit too good to roll over, although it's not great. Oh, hang on, sorry, no, it's attack speed and then it's cast speed. My bad, I thought the first 2 mods were stacking with each other. Attack speed and crit multi work well together for Castle and Critical Strike builds, but there's nothing else for that build here. So for that reason, I'm wrong. This one is a rollover. Here we've got life, and we've got cold damage, and we've got cold damage over time multiplier, and we've got freeze mods on it. This is basically what we're doing this for. There's sometimes when you're rolling duels, you will hit a mediocre hit, and we've had 2 mediocre hits here. Both of these are okay, but neither of them are great. And then we've had this one. 7% life is an outstanding roll. 12% cold damage is an outstanding roll. The freeze mod is interesting in that for some builds it's amazing. Interestingly, I'm going to use this myself. I get nothing out of the cold damage over time multiplier mod on it. However, for another user, that might be exactly what they're looking for. I think most players will get some use out of either the freezing mod or the diluted mod, but not both. But overall, this is exactly the reason that we're rolling these duels. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Really simple little crafting session, but something that costs very little to run. All I used there was 7 2-socket resonators, 7 scouring orbs, 3 jewels that have been sitting in my 8 chaos tab and had not sold, so they were not valuable jewels, and 7 of each of Pristine and Frigid Fossils. And I just did some due diligence into the prices there, and at the time that I'm recording this video, that comes to a grand sum total of about 28 Chaos Orbs for all of the consumables that were used in making this. Now, of course, you're not likely to get lucky and hit something as good as this. This is a jewel that will probably sell for maybe 1.5 exalts, 2 on a good day, but you're not likely to get something that good. But you are quite likely to get things like this that someone is likely to want 3 of the 4 mods on. One last point is that you don't need to use Frigid Fossils. You can use whatever synergizes with your build. I don't suggest using expensive fossils. So, for instance, if you're playing the sort of build that could benefit a lot from rolling mods related to bleeding, don't use corroded fossils. They're too expensive for this. But you can certainly get some value using any of the elemental fossils. So pretty much any of the even prismatic fossils now are cheap enough to use in this way. But metallic fossils if you're playing a lightning build, scorched fossils if you're playing a fire build, prismatic if you're playing a multi-element build, or if you want further biasing towards getting the rolls that you want, and aberrant fossils if you're playing a chaos build. Additionally, if you are playing a build that is running Energy Shield as your primary defense instead of life, then I suggest that instead of using pristine fossils, you just use dense fossils instead. Anyways, that's all I got for this one. You got any comments or questions? Fire away below.